Okay, we got cut off there, but I'm gonna try again here. So, the act of forgiveness actually allows you to move on with the freedom that you need in order to live your life to the fullest. Now, in the conversation with my mother, I had brought this up about the generational. How do I want to explain it? The generational hand-me-downs of that trauma or that hurt. There is a point where you have to let those things go because you can acknowledge that they exist and that they happened. But carrying the anger or emotion or feeling of something that happened to somebody who is not you directly is, it makes sense because of the condition that we have where we are empathic. We are sympathetic to those in our lives that we care for and whatnot. And it's totally normal to have those feelings. But carrying the baggage and resentment of somebody who lived generations before you, and these things are inadvertently passed down through generations and we don't necessarily realize it. So, looking for forgiveness inside of yourself in relation to that frees up a humongous chunk of heart space that would normally be closed off if you didn't periodically take inventory of what is being held in that space. Another thing that I would like to mention is that, I briefly mentioned, my ex and whatnot. And so we had like a falling out, whatever, and I was angry for a little while. And then, I just started to, there's, because there's so much love there, and what my practice is to do this even if there's no love or I don't even know the person. That's the challenge. See, there she is up on my cards. And that's the challenge. Hey, get down. That's the challenge that we face, is that we have to actually work to forgive those people because of what they have been through. And it might not necessarily be something that you know how to even respond to that experience, and you're not saying to them, well, get over it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I see you, and I see why you hold that hurt, or I see why you are unavailable emotionally or physically. I see why you do that, and I forgive you because it's essentially not that person's fault. And that's not like excusing people for whatever they do if they mistreat somebody or something like that. It's not saying letting them off the hook and saying it's your fault or it's not your fault. I'm sorry. It's absolutely not that at all. You have to absolutely take in the character of a person. And so I don't just I'm not just saying like, well, you did this, so it's okay. No, it's the character of the person is absolutely a beautiful person, down to his core. His heart is so giving and so generous and so loving and like just a generous, gentle soul. And he's full of light and he has all these magnificent qualities. I see the way he is with his daughter and with his friends and even with strangers, and he's just absolutely like just a wonderful person. What I also see is, there is a generational baggage that he carries, let's put it that way. And the things we do in our adult life are directly related to what we've experienced as children. And a perfect example is this. I talked briefly about how I was like the new kid in school, and so I just kind of had this thing where because I was singled out and made to feel funny or whatever because I was the new kid in town, I just had this thing where like anybody who moved into the neighborhood or came new to the school after me, it just was like I made a point to like introduce themselves. Like if you don't talk to anybody else, you have one friend. My name's Kara. Nice to meet you. And it just some of those friendships, may not have lasted forever, whatever, but the memory is there and permeates deep. I'll never forget these people, and hopefully they'll look back and think fondly of me. And my ex and I did talk about that, and he said the same thing. He's like, I had been to so many different schools in such short periods of time. I always made sure to make friends with the new person directly because you know how it feels. So you do that. But one thing, like, never really talked about and maybe not realized by him, and same with my grandmother, maybe never realized by her, but the need to be liked or accepted by your peers is strong, and we feel that way into adulthood, most definitely. We definitely carry that with us, and if it was rough or traumatic as children, there's a part of it that's going to be nerve-wracking and cause apprehension for us as adults, and we might not necessarily always know how to fit in or how to be accepted, and that's not really the point. The point is just be yourself. If a bunch of adults do that to you, well, again, they most likely have baggage as to why they act that way. But as adults, we also have the conscious mind and our reasonable mind, and we also know about social mores, and we know what's appropriate, what isn't. And so, I mean, as adults, the older you get, the more you know, and so the less that should be happening. But the truth of it is it still happens, even into adulthood. But the point is that, as children, when you feel like the new person, and especially if you experience that feeling like over and over and over again, there are certain ways, there's two ways of, certain ways that'll go. For my grandmother, it was, she had that feeling and that experience that made her feel that way as a child. And so her defense mechanism, because that's what it is, things like that breed defense mechanisms. And so that defense mechanism ended up being, maybe she was more of like a loner and stayed like more, introverted. And my grandma was extremely funny and a great lady, but on the friends thing, she didn't keep in touch with a lot of people, and she didn't extend herself out to a ton of people. And a lot of that is because as a child, she was stifled to do so. And when she did do it, she felt like she was punished or turned away, and so that's completely understandable that as an adult, she felt the need to like almost close herself off. Although it's not a healthy thing to do that. She was a great lady, and people would have loved to know her in the way that we did, but that definitely affected the way she conducted herself in her adult life. And I feel that it's, had she maybe realized some of this stuff, she maybe would have let people in a little more and been able to experience and enjoy the company of others and the camaraderie that comes along with that a little more. In terms of my ex, I see, we can go out somewhere and he will literally be able to talk with anybody, like strike up a like instant friendship, like almost, and so, and if you ask him, he'll say, well, I was shy up until, a few years ago, or, and he is, he is reserved in his ways, but he'll just break the ice with somebody and really just, and I've seen people be really cool with it and be really welcoming, because I have that same tendency in me where, like, I could hear somebody talking and I'll just interject with a joke or something like that, and people either are real cool about it and engage with you, or they're not. And if they're not, that's their problem, and maybe I shouldn't have chimed in or something like that, but I mean no harm, and I was trying to be funny and whatnot, and that's just my way of breaking the ice. Well, he has a similar way, and I've seen people be extremely like welcoming, and I'll strike up these conversations, and I'm like, oh, well, he's got a new best friend, and I love it because it is, we mirror each other that way, and I've also seen people kind of like look like, well, who are you? Well, like, of all the things people could be, friendly should never be looked at with a furrowed brow, or but the fact is that because people's own life experiences, some may perceive it that way. I'm notorious for running up to girls and being like, or guys, and being like, I love your shoes. Oh my goodness. And because I'm a Scorpio and I'm intense, there are some people who are like, oh my God, thanks. Like, you made my day. So cool. And then there's other people who look at me like I am from outer space and I just cracked him over the head with a hammer. I mean, like, how dare you disturb me? And I used to get hurt feelings over that. And I'm like, well, I just meant that I liked your shoes or I liked your dress. But the fact is what I've realized is that isn't even about me. And again, we talked about that. The 90% of the way people treat you is nothing to do with you. And so forgiveness comes up because instead of like letting that chip in my heart, and you carry that like little bug of a feeling with you, until it dissipates and you don't think about it anymore. But the thing is that when you learn to forgive and say, you know what, it's for whatever reason you reacted that way, or for whatever reason you did that, or responded like that, like, I forgive you because you probably didn't mean it, and you're not saying it to the person literally, but inside your heart you just, I'm letting go of this because I forgive them. And and this is where the conversation went with my mother, is like, we carry those generational baggage type things that affect us in certain ways. And so, I just said to my mother, you just have to like, kind of like, release your attachment to it, is what I'm saying. So what happened, it's there, that's never going to go away. By forgiving the hurt that was caused by, and you may have never met that person, but like, like, I forgive whoever made grandma feel that way. And if you can do that, you can kind of help to release some of that generational bondage that we carry. It's like emotional bondage. And again, in our own lives, in your day to day, you say like I said, I was a little angry over the way things ended, with my ex. And people, I'm not real talky about my personal business like that. So, when things ended that way, it was just something I kept to myself. It's nobody's business but his and mine. But the fact of the matter is like, I was angry, I was hurt. And, I decided to just say, like, let's look at this logically, like a scientist. Like, his character is beautiful. He has his core is magic. And I see that. And he has so much light to offer and such beautiful things. And he's just such a beautiful person. But things in our life, the baggage we carry triggers us in different ways. There could have been something I did to trigger something within him or within the two of us, and it was just like an emotional spark that like turned into a blazing nuclear blast. And, I'm not super proud of the way I acted in anger and, the things I said. And I am sorry for that, but, instead of carrying, I could do one of two things. I can carry around that guilt and feel bad and feel ashamed and, be mad at myself and feel like a crappy person. Or I can say, what, I'm a human being and I experienced anger. I'm not proud of, maybe what I said or whatever, but, I forgive the situation for unfolding the way it did. I forgive him for, and what this was bred out of was a defense mechanism on his part, which then triggered a defense mechanism in me and made me respond a certain way. So I forgive him. I forgive him because there is that love there, and I don't want to carry around anger when I think of him. I'm grateful that we spent as much time together as we did, and I've grown so much. He has grown so much. And even if our lives and our paths never cross again, I want everything beautiful and happy for him because, number one, he deserves it. We all do. And number two, we're human. Nobody's perfect, and so the defense mechanisms that you carried around as a young person, those served you at a certain time to get through whatever it was in your life that was, you know, challenging you or making you feel bad. But if we can look at these as challenges and as growth opportunities, and you might not look at it at the time like that, but you want to try and try to consider it or see a situation that way, the more distance you have from it. So, like, as time goes by, they say time heals everything, and that is really the truth because it gives you insight. Hindsight is 20/20. So I can look back at the situation specifically with him and, say, like, relate and say, like, he had been through all of these things that, made him build defense mechanisms in order to survive, in order to, live life, and in order to, move on and go on. And we all build these defense mechanisms because at a time it serves us in a beneficial way. But then what we don't realize is, and something, this is what I said to my mother, is something that some people never do, is learn to release that. And sometimes those defense mechanisms, when they're not for our highest good anymore, a lot of, and most of us, we unconsciously hang on to them because that's just the way we've always done things. That's just what it is. And we, without realizing it, we are holding on to a defense mechanism or a behavioral pattern where, yes, it did serve us in the past and it kept us safe and it kept us mentally sane or whatever. But then there's a certain time where that thing might not be useful anymore. And then when you are allowing it to creep up and take control in your life, you are actually hurting yourself without, of course, without meaning to, but you're cutting yourself off from experiences that you could enjoy and, you're cutting yourself off from things and people that could be, a benefit and uplifting to your soul and to your life. By holding on to that stuff, we actually, like I said, keep ourselves in a place of resentment and anger and sadness and hurt. And the point of life is not to be those things all the time. The point is, we're all going to have those ups and downs when, something sad happens, you're sad. Something hurts you and you're hurt. You respond to it directly, but to carry that as a daily from, like, things that happened in your past. And we've all met those people who are like, this happened 50 years ago and, like, my life is horrible because of that one thing. And I agree that for some people that may be true, but for most of us, that one thing that hurt us so long ago, by carrying it with you and, like, replaying it day to day and living in that space, that meant that space of hurt, and carrying that with you day to day, that it is unhealthy and it stifles you from being the best version of yourself that you could be. And I'm not perfect, nobody is, but I really do try hard to, look for the best in others and examine why they may have acted like that. And it, like I said, it wasn't about me. Now, in terms of forgiveness, we forget that we have to also forgive ourselves. Carrying guilt or shame or whatever, we all make mistakes. That's the whole thing. And if you feel you owe somebody an apology for something you did or you said, say it. Say it. And they might not accept it at the moment you say it, but a couple weeks, couple months, a year, 10 years down the line, somebody may look back and be like, oh, wow, okay, I accept your apology and I forgive you. And again, forgiveness and acceptance of yourself, that is huge. That is huge. I mean, I remember feeling so guilty and ashamed of myself because I allowed myself to stay in an abusive and dysfunctional relationship with my ex-husband for, 8+ years, and it obliterated me. Like, it literally it literally brought me to ground level. It was like a nuclear bomb of my essence. And it's taken me a good at least 7 years to rediscover who I am. And now, of course, I'm not the same person that I was, but I feel I'm a more interesting and a more loving and a more open and a more insightful person that I was. I definitely, I see why he acted the way, or why he was the way he was. But one thing I could say about my ex-husband is I, I honestly don't believe that his character was a good character. And so then his behavior was just absolutely awful, because he had a double whammy. He was not a nice person. He did not have a good character. And I see like why he may have been, his character was like that. And of course I see why. But I still forgive him, because to carry that, I do not want to allow somebody like that to take up heart space or mental space for me. He was not a good person at all, but I still forgive him. And I forgive him because if you're a bad person or not, and I'm not saying bad, but I'm saying like not a good person. His morals weren't good. Just those kinds of things. Just he wasn't good in terms of his core essence. He did have a real screwed up way of thinking. And the thing is that the reason I forgive him is because, again, like I said, I do not want to allow a person like that to take up any real estate in my heart or in my head or in my being. Not at all. They do not deserve it. He absolutely showed me his character 100%. And as forgiving myself, it took me a long time to really do that. And I can talk about things that happened with him or the way he treated me now without the sadness or like that anger or that hurt. And I can actually like share those things with people and without the humiliation of feeling that I had let myself down or let myself be, because you know what? I loved with all my heart. I was absolutely, sharing my complete essence with somebody. And because I am trusting and because I see the good in everybody, I just, I kept looking for the good and I kept giving all those chances and whatnot. And so, but that was my learning experience and my growth experience. And nobody forced me to give chances or to stay in that situation. And nobody forced me to, search so hard for the good in somebody. But I just, in my mind, I couldn't reconcile with the fact that, like, that could be somebody's character. But now that I'm older, that absolutely can be somebody's character. And so that's where the difference lies is the man I was most recently dating, he's the opposite of that. He is a beautiful, wonderful man. And we get along, just, he's literally my best friend. And we're not in communication right now. And that's okay. We're both kind of taking time for ourselves to grow and to evolve. And you can't have an amazing relationship, even with the most amazing person, until you are good as an individual and in a good place as an individual. And when we met, I didn't really realize it at the time, but I was depressed. He was, and I remember like in one of our recent conversations, like 6 months ago, we had reconnected after a time, and I remember he said to me, like we were both depressed, and I kind of looked at it, took me aback because I didn't even realize I was depressed, and he said, 2 depressed people cannot help each other. Oh my goodness. It was just so insightful and so profound, and I mean, that right there says it all, is like 2 individuals who are, still growing and working and, are still curing as individuals. That would make it extremely hard to be able to give your all and your essence to somebody in a wholehearted way and in the healthiest of ways, because you're still sorting out what isn't working for you from the past, your defense mechanisms, the defense mechanisms I had with my ex-husband absolutely would be the wrong thing to bring into a relationship with him. And I'll tell you, there was still like, and I didn't even realize it would creep in until it actually presented itself and manifested itself. And, you know, if I was having like a good day, I could actually look at him and say to him, like, I'm so sorry, something you said triggered me, and that literally brought in something I used in that relationship, and it is not beneficial to me, and you didn't deserve for me. And it's not that I was saying bad things or horrible things, but like, you know, you absolutely did not deserve to have even heard that out of my mouth, or like to have even experienced that from me. And the same goes for him. Even though some of us are less articulate when it comes to our feelings, I could just, there were things that obviously, you know, like if you spend a number of years with somebody and have like that, you know, a very, you know, a close bond, or even like a traumatic or tumultuous bond or whatever it is, but you spend a few years with somebody, you know, I could see that there were defense mechanisms he had from his, you know, a long time, a past relationship of his that was a long time relationship. And, you know, there were certain defense mechanisms that he used in that relationship because that's what worked at the time. But now this is different. And so we're both learning on how to, you know, find ourselves and be able to let go of those past hurts and things. And the point is as long as you can look at it that way and be gentle with yourself and learn to forgive yourself, you know, for not knowing better at the time, or for, you know, but the point is like, you forgive yourself, you can forgive that other person, and then what happens from there on is what matters. So we all make mistakes, we all say stupid things that we regret later, or do stupid things that we regret later, but the point is that if you can find it within yourself to forgive yourself for you know, acting out of sorts, either it was a defense mechanism that had served you well in the past and it no longer does, or it was you know, you know, just something that like maybe you're not so proud of. You acted out of anger, out of sadness, out of insecurity, out of jealousy, all these things play a part in that. But as long as you can look at it and say, okay, well, I realize where it came from, and I am going to do my best to try and let that go and grow from this and become better and a truer, more authentic version of myself, I think that's what it's all about. And so I'm actually going to let you guys go because I can go on forever and ever and ever about this. But forgiveness kept coming up, and just in like my daily goings on. And I will just show you this card. This is part of my angel deck. It's actually done by a oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong card. So this is an angel deck. It is done by a, I'll have to look it up and share it with you guys next time. But this is a deck that I bought at the Erie County Fair by a local artist. I believe she's local, or local-ish. But she specializes in angel paintings and things like that. This is the card, I know it's backwards in here, but it's the healing angel cards, Angelus. And so in the past few readings I've been doing for the last few days, this card, forgiveness, and these are the readings that are involving me, this card has popped up like 3 times, and I feel like there's a double of this in this deck, because in one reading I got this card pulled out twice, which is just ridiculous. So it just, that word just keeps coming up. It comes up in the things I'm reading and the things that I'm talking about. And so, I don't know, I just decided today was a nice Sunday, and I got my room finally starting to be set up. I'm excited. And so it's a nice spiritual place where I can, you know, collect myself and my thoughts, and, you know, hopefully do readings in the future. Which I would love to do. So, you know, if you want, hit me up and we can do one over, you know, text messaging or Facebook Messenger. Or, I don't have Skype, but I have Marco Polo, so we can maybe do it over that. All right. Well, I love you guys, and I love that you listen. I love the feedback that I've been getting in person. It just, if I can, like I said, I do these because if I can inspire you, if I can maybe offer advice that you didn't know that you needed or wanted, if something I say strikes a chord or resonates with you, then it was definitely the universe speaking through me to get to you, and you needed to hear it. And I'm glad you did, and I'm glad that I can share and share that light and my experiences with you. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a beautiful Sunday. It's gorgeously sunny out there, but it's freezing, so I'm gonna hibernate. Night.